Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage from round 9 of the 2017 Tata Steel Tournament, played on Tuesday the 24th of January. I picked two games for you. Let's first look at how Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, got on. He had a horrible weekend, missing the mate in 3 against Geary and then pushing too hard against Rapport, losing that game. And let's see if he got his campaign back on track after the rest day against the bottom placed Van Wely. Carlsen is white, Van Wely is black, and this is after the 19th move from white. Rook a1 takes a knight on c1. Let's look at the position. Equal material, but what strikes the eye is that pawn on c6, which is a big thorn in black's side. Look at queen and bishop already looking at that pawn. The bishop on a6 doesn't look great either, looking at the protected pawn on c4 from white. And black's king isn't castled yet, while white's king looks very safe. White is better here. Let's see what black can do here. He can try, for example, bishop b7. Let's try that move. And then hopefully on a good day to play c6, c5 to bring that bishop to life. But then there's rook takes, d8 check, bishop takes, and knight f6 check. If you take that knight, the queen is coming to f6 and black is in big trouble. The rook is hanging. If you play rook g8, then for example rook d1 is a strong move. And you cannot play c5 just to show you that, because then bishop takes b7, queen takes, and there's a checkmate. So you can still not free your position. And after rook g8, that pawn on h6 is hanging as well. This is very good for white. Let's look at another move for black. He can castle, put a king safe, although it's not very safe there unfortunately. Again there's knight f6 check. If you take that piece, queen takes back, then again white has a lot of pressure against the black king. If you don't take after knight f6 check but play for example king g7, then there's knight h5 check, king has to go back, and then you can take that pawn on c6 because the knight is now out of the way of that diagonal. So there's problems for black. In the end, Van Wely decided on queen f4. Carlsen took on d8, check, bishop took back, and he swapped the queens. G takes f4, and then he played knight c5, hitting the bishop and also hitting the pawn. The bishop cannot protect the pawn, has to go to c8. And Carlsen then won a pawn with check, bishop takes c6 check, king e7, the bishop went back to f3, and Carlsen had won a pawn, and he has a superior structure. This game lasted for another 35 moves. It ended up in a rook endgame with an extra pawn for white, which Carlsen won pretty comfortably. So Carlsen back on track with a win in this game. Let's have a look at the other game I picked. It is between Dmitry Andreikin versus Pavel Eljanov. Eljanov of course started the round only half a point behind leader Wesley So. Let's see how he got on. This is the position after 31 c5 c6 from Andreikin, and this is a crazy position. Black is 2 exchanges up. As you can see, he has 2 rooks versus bishop and knight for white. But we should not count material here. Black has an advantage, but it is a crazy position. Look at those pawns on c6 and b7 for example. Eljanov played rook b e8, threatening to push his pawn, his e-pawn up the board. Knight e2 from Andreikin, and here Eljanov played f7, f6. What he is what he wants to do, he wants to attack over the h-file. Rooks like open files, and the only open file on this board is the h-file. It's also good that that's close to white's king, so the rooks really want to go there. And with f7, f6, Eljanov is preparing to move his rooks to the h-file. Queen d1 from Andreikin, eyeing up the d5 pawn. Rook h7, there goes the first rook. Queen takes the pawn with check. King g7, making way for the other rook. g3. Andreikin is going to make some air for his king. And a nice in-between move from Eljanov, first kicking the queen before moving to the h-file. On the d5, the queen is looking at the h1 square, of course, if the pawn would move, so that might be important for white. And now Andreikin plays the queen to e6. It's no covering the h1 square from there, but it's covering the g4 square, because black might want to close the mating net with a g5, g4 move, and that is now more difficult. Also, the white queen is now close to the black king for any possible perpetual check maneuvers. Eljanov played rook d h8 as planned, and f4 by Andreikin. These g3 and f4 moves create an escape route for the king. Rook h1 check, king g2, and now Eljanov played rook 1 h2. He could also have tried rook 8 h2. Let's have a look at that variation. King f3, rook f2 check, king takes e3, and then a very nice move, queen b6 check, protecting the rook at the same time. Knight d4 is the only move, and rook e1 check looks very strong, winning the queen, but not winning the game. Let's have a look what could have happened here. King takes the rook, and yes, the queen goes, but there is the move that saves white, c6, c7. And you cannot take that c7 pawn because of knight takes e6 check. For king, king and queen. And if you take, after c6, c7, take the b pawn, then there is also knight takes e6 check and king h6 with a crazy position where all three results are possible. Black has a queen, white only two minor pieces, but he still has that very strong pawn on c7, protected by the knight. Let's go back after king g2. So this variation I just showed you could have arisen after the move rook 8 to h2 check, but instead Eljanov played the other rook. King f3 was played, rook f2 check, king takes, the other rook came to h2, bishop d1 protecting the knight, g takes f4 check, knight takes, and there's queen b6 again. King e4 is the only legal move, and the queen came to b1 with check. King d5, queen takes d1 check, and king c5. Now let's take stock. Black is a lot of material up now, but of course white still has those pawns. At the same time, black's king also looks quite lonely. Let's continue. The only move here for black is rook takes f4, otherwise he is worse. Rook takes f4, and now you should not think that you can finally queen that b pawn, because if you do that, then you lose with white because of rook h5 check. And let's look at the variation. Anything loses now for white, but king b4, queen b1 check, king a4, queen takes a2, king b4, and there are different checkmate on the next move, for example, queen b3 check, checkmate. So after rook takes f4, you should not promote, and that move rook takes f4, as I said, was the only move, and the reason that it was the only move, that otherwise the black king is a mating net. So rook takes f4, and here Andreikin decided to look for a perpetual. Queen e7, king g6, queen e8 check, king g7, queen e7, king h6, queen f8, and both players looked if the king can try to escape, but in the end Eljanov decided that that was not the right thing to do. He went back to h7, and there were a few more moves. Neither player wanted to admit that it was finally a draw. They were hoping that the other player would deviate, play something else, and that the game would go on. But I'll just show you those last few moves. And after 54, queen f7 check, both players shook hands, and this fantastic fight was over and ended in a draw. The results of round 9, as you can see, all games ended in a draw apart from the Carlsen-Van Wely game. It doesn't mean that there was no fight. There was a lot of fight. There were a lot of very exciting games. For example, the Wely Andreikin game went on till over 80 moves, with Wely trying to convert an extra pawn, but in the end Andreikin was able to save the draw. The standings after round 9, Wesley So still on top with +3, and Magnus Carlsen has now joined Eljanov and Wely in the hunt, half a point behind the leader. Round 10 will be played on Wednesday the 25th of January. Hopefully it will be another exciting round, and I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.